Welcome to Agape is Love, and thank you for joining us. We are a new evolving ministry, a unity community. Our outreach is a ministry of people for people, people who lovingly serve others in outreach to educate, promote, and provide opportunities for spiritual and community development. We are excited to share this edition of our service with you. Please leave us comments, like, share, and spread the word.
Okay, so somebody came up with a bright idea for a spiritual talk on grief, and, well, here I am. So bear with me because I'm going to try to get through this, but I'm not sure that I'm not going to, there hasn't been enough grief around that I'm going to choke up a little bit. For the past 18 months, I know all of us across the world have felt this, and it can be a bit overwhelming. And being an empathic person, which a lot of us in recovery are, a lot of the load lands on our shoulders and we don't even know what it is. So as Patricia said, let's take a big, deep breath in and release before I get started, okay? All right. We're going to ask ourselves, who taught us about grief? And what did we learn? Now, most of us had never really had a teacher or a mentor on the subject. And whatever we learned was up to a point was likely self-taught, or we watched somebody else, how they handled grief. As we grew up, we were socialized. Most of us, you go in denial. Try not to grieve over that, or why are you crying about that still, right? Because we're told or we learned it was not to show our feelings. And at least in my family, what happened inside was a whole different show than what happened on the outside. When you went outside, you were this perfect little family as best you could be, right? So we didn't have any expectations, we didn't have any knowledge, we didn't have any understanding. I know growing up, I didn't understand grief. And I remember attending several funerals. Now, grief has 5 stages, but here's the thing is, this last 18 months, we're not just grieving, like the meditation said, we're not just grieving the loss of the people that aren't here anymore. We have so many other things going on that in this 18 months that has passed just recently, our whole world has changed. Not just our lives, but our world has changed. So things feel heavy. And if we don't have an understanding of what the baseline is at a foundation, like me, I didn't have a foundation for grief. I didn't know there were 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I certainly didn't know that you didn't go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. No, it doesn't happen like that, right? I can be in 2 or 3 at the same time, or get all the way to the end thinking I'm okay, and then the next Christmas, something triggers me back. Right? So there's no timeline for people, and then no 2 people get through it the same. So if anybody's out there saying, "Oh, you should be over that by now," they passed away, 3 years ago. Hey, who are you? Because it's our individual thing. Now there's a line where it becomes from grief to depression. I'm not talking about the depression side. If you're in depression, please seek help. It's important to know that if you don't know if it is, then go to a counselor and find out if it might be depression. Because if it's a depression, then it can be a whole different thing, right? So there's a lot of sites on the internet. There's a lot of info out there that try to help us pass through it. But what if, and there are those words again, right? What if we're not supposed to get past anything? That's not what we're doing here. What if we are to learn it is a natural process and even healthy to grieve, to go through this, to accept these things, right? What then? So no one taught me how to grieve. I don't know about you, but I remember I had to hide it. I had to stop crying. People told us, don't act like that. It's just a dog. But that dog meant a lot to me as a child. I mean, he was there when I was in so much pain, and he would listen, and I swear he knew. I swear he did. He was a magic dog. But I would hear, why are you crying? It's just a dog. So grief, what's normal and what's not? Okay, there's no really easy way through this. So there is an attachment to something, you can sure that there's going to be a loss at some point if it leaves. And that's anything. That's the job, like we were talking about. That's the person. That's the animal. That's the home. I mean, people are having to leave their homes after so many years because they can't pay their mortgage anymore because of this pandemic that's surrounding us. So Amy Green, she is the director of the Center for Spiritual Care at Cleveland, in the Cleveland Clinic, says, while this is the physical life may end from someone, the relationship continues. And this is where this is where the part that we're missing is the part that we're grieving is the relationship, the things the interaction. My dog would come, I'd be sitting on the porch and crying and have my hand over my eyes. And he would push his way through to lick my face until he made me laugh. Now that's special, right? So it was that relationship. When he wasn't there anymore, I didn't have that someone pushing through, some spirit pushing through for me. Adjusting to the new reality takes time, and it doesn't follow a predictable pattern, despite what anybody wants to say, okay? Because it's our grief. It's unique to each person. Often emotions get tucked under and rather than out in the feeling. And we may not feel our inside squeezed with loss. There's just so much going on and everything feels so heavy that we don't know how to let it out. So possibly you may feel like you're throwing something that might shatter, or another day you could feel like, a strange sense of peace. Any one of those can happen, and sometimes at the same time. This is why we have to be patient. We have to give ourselves grace. And we have to remember, like the song said, which was amazing, you keep us together. As I was sitting there thinking about giving this talk, I thought, oh gosh, I hope I can make it all the way through it. And I went, wait, Jody just told me, you keep me together. Sometimes well-intentioned people around us will say things, and keep busy and find new things to do, and they love us. They want to show us that they care, but this isn't our answer. We live in a culture that wants to move quickly past grief, as though it were an obstacle to overcome. Our culture just wants it to be over with. But there is truth. It's normal for people who are grieving to feel off kilter, okay, for a long time. I, a few years ago, lost somebody that meant a lot to me. And when we're talking about recovery, I tried really hard to get this beautiful soul of a woman to come into the recovery sense of life. And she was struggling really hard. And she didn't make it back. But I feel her presence all the time. Even though she's not here, I still have my relationship with her. And I still, as you can tell, am grieving the loss of that hug and that love, because she was a bright light. And addiction took her. And we've lost a lot of people in addiction. She's not the only one in my life. She's just the most recent and one of the brightest lights I'd ever seen for love. So, as you can see, 4 years now later, songs play on the radio, and I hear her. I will be walking and I'll see a certain flower and I see her. And I know that she's showing me that she's still here. I just miss the loss of this physical part, and one day I won't have to miss that. But let's be patient with those around us whose intentions are kind, but make sure that you take your advice for yourself, okay? unless they're a trained grief counselor and they tell you what to do. If you're getting help with that, then listen to your grief counselor. So tips for dealing with grief. Accept the loneliness, because sometimes that, maybe we're not even alone, but have you ever felt alone in a crowded room? I have. Because I'm going through something that nobody really understands, my connection to something else, right? Choose good company. Look for friends, old and new, who know about grief. Support groups are great. I recommend them clearly because I'm here. And be gentle with ourselves. Give the grace to ourselves and understand that it's a process and we're going to go through it for a while. And maybe on my deathbed, 50, 60 years from now, we'll see, knock on wood, I will still recall these people and love them just as much as I did the day they left my life and the day the dog left my life, which is about 30 years ago now. So it's been a while. And get extra rest, they say. Get a lot of rest. And I know that sounds silly, but you heal when you rest. Your body has time to heal your body, because grief can affect our bodies. Okay? So if we get rest, we allow that. We need to embrace all the emotions. And that, for me, and I think I can't guess for you guys, but being in recovery the way I am, being able to embrace, I couldn't even figure out what my emotions were when I first came into recovery. What do you mean? I knew what laughing was. I didn't do it very often unless I was drinking. And I laughed all the time. I was a happy drunk. I was like my dad. Give me some liquor and I'm happy. Get a buzz. Keep going, But it's never weak or abnormal to feel these waves of emotion, okay? And feeling them and letting them be and understanding that they're going to pass was something I had to learn in recovery, because it wasn't something that was taught to me. It wasn't modeled to me. I didn't even know it existed. I learned it through the walls of recoveries, right? So set a regular sleep schedule. If you go to bed at the same time, even if you can't fall asleep, eventually your body will start going to sleep at the right time, and it's important. And move our bodies. Sitting in a chair 15 hours a day in front of a video screen, doing whatever you have to do nowadays to keep busy and work from home, can really bring your emotions down. I mean, that whole position is more of a, if you want to be happier, they say lift your head up. Can't be sad if your chin's up. Well, you can, but face the sun, get up, move. And move doesn't mean go and exercise, because I really wish I could get up a good pattern of that. I really do. I'm still working on that. I'm a work in progress. Move, walk. Take the dog for a walk. The dog could really use a walk, especially the dog in our house. She loves Frisbee. And if it lasts for too long or it seems too deep, please talk to your doctor. I'm going to stop right here real fast, because at the end of this, we're going to run our resources. I want you to know, because I know this is a touchy subject, because I knew I was trying to figure out how I could get through it all. But I do want you to know that at the end of this, we'll run some resources that we have here that are here locally for you guys to call if you're feeling that you really need to reach out and keep yourself together, or if you just feel like maybe you just need to check in with somebody, okay? That will be there. So keep watching after we're done talking here. Okay. Keep structuring your day. And that's important, because if we don't stay on task, then we'll lose track. I had a conversation this weekend with the kids about how easy it is to be on Pinterest and waste an hour before I know it. And it is really easy, because I'll flip in there going, just see one thing and go, oh yeah, but then it shows you these are close to it. Look at these two, Then an hour later, I'm like, what happened? Where did that hour go? So if we keep structure in our day, that'll also help us keep moving in and moving forward in our process. Okay, set goals. I'm not talking about goals about getting over grief. I'm just little small goals. This week I will clean out the closet and vacuum the bottom, because everything gets on the bottom, right? Just set some kind of small goal. And make a list of daily activities. I like doing this because sometimes when I get into my day, I'll go, there was something I needed to do, but I don't remember what it is. At the end of the night, I'll remember and think, oh man, I had that 45 minutes, I could have done it. So, and be cautious. Don't make any big decisions or changes, especially when we're emotional. We know that. We want to react. Oh, that brings triggers back from my using days. That's it, it's over. I'm going to change all this. Calm down, take a breath, stay in the moment, live with the emotions, right? Take care of your inner needs. Find time for whatever you need, spiritual practice or creative outlet, something just to do to help you feel like you're connecting to yourself, to your body, right? My philosophy is life is an upward spiral. Okay? So I'm going to have this grief down here on the bottom, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to start circling around. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to feel that grief again, but I'm going to be at a little bit different level of understanding myself and my relationship to the person and the loss, and back up. I hate to say that the one old saying was, every cloud has a silver lining. I used to hate when people said that. When I lived in Memphis, Tennessee for 6 years, I actually saw silver linings around clouds. The sun would hit them just right, and I was just like, that's really true, because before I'd never seen it. But the clouds there are just, the clusters are just amazing, and you'd see all of these individual clouds in this bright blue sky with the lining, and I'm like, there is something good about this. There's going to be some good come out of this process. I'm going to learn how to be a better me, and I'm going to mine the gifts out of the relationship, the love. I haven't lost the love of my dog. He still loves me. I just don't get to see him. So healthy grief. This is how we do it, right? The site called it Good Grief. It's actually out there. Look it up, goodgrief.org. Okay? Identify what we've lost. We touch our pain. And that's the hard one, especially if you're new to recovery. Even when you've been in recovery for a while, sometimes it's hard to touch them because you have to understand what they are, and then I'm not going to let the monsters out, right? I was always afraid if I let my emotions out, the monsters would come out. Well, it was just emotions being held down, right? Tell your story. Deal with the regrets, if there are any, and recognize that if you had any resentments. I'll go into this one real briefly. I lost my dad about 8 months ago. And it was a rocky relationship from the start. My dad didn't find recovery until he was 67, and then his recovery was white-knuckling it and going to church. But while he was 67, I was 37 before he found it. So the relationship we had for those first 37 years of my life was really hard. And there was a lot of things that didn't need to happen. But when you're raised in a house of alcohol and abuse, these things do happen. So when he found his other side, I just went with it. I was so happy to finally have the dad I wanted. And I got to spend 25 years loving this man. And it was amazing. I even spoke at his funeral. I was so excited. I actually didn't cry. I made it through. And then, as I'm going through my grief process, I'm starting to get resentments towards somebody that's not even here anymore. And I'm like, what is this? And I kept thinking, what kind of monster are you to regret, get a resentment about somebody that's passed away? And then I realized this is healthy grief. This is something that I didn't let go of from those first 37 years. I just was happy that I had a dad, and I went with it. We were both, just clean and sober and having a good life. And then I was left with this going, what is this? So I had to recognize those. And they pop up every now and again. I'm like, yep, that's what that was. And that's okay because he did the best that he could with what he had, right? Take a break. Give yourself a break. Even if it feels like this is one of the things my sponsor taught me. It was so amazing when she taught me this. She said, don't let that child throw a tantrum in the middle of what you're trying to do, meaning my inner child, right? So she'd say, just step out of the room and tell it, now listen, we're going to deal with this when we get home, but right now, I'm in charge. And it's okay. If you're in the middle of something or you can't have time at that time to deal with whatever it is that's coming up, just tell yourself, okay, check, I'm going to take care of that when I get home and I'm alone and I can handle it, or I need to talk to my sponsor or whatever, or when I go to my meeting or whatever it is. Because it's okay to take a break from it if you need a break. And keep your eyes looking forward. I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to look better. It's going to be better. Just give it some time, because time doesn't really heal like they say it does. We heal ourselves. And we learn to mine the gold out of it, right? No two people grieve the same way. Life doesn't stop for our pain, okay? Watch out for unhealthy affection. So, being in grief, trying to connect, we've got a loss and we want to connect, and that can cause more problems in our recovery, right? And old losses may still need to be mourned. Like I said, the resentments. Understand it. It's the bottom line. We just got to understand what grief is, right? Grief is not just an emotional reaction, okay? It's emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual. Emotionally, all the emotions are valid. Intellectually, we experience a range of thoughts. Okay, I don't know about you, but I don't go into my mind by myself, because my mind is wicked weird. I have sci-fi dreams. I can really create stuff inside there that I go driving down the road and something pop in, like, where did that come from? So think about that, about the thoughts of grief, and we can often try to wrap our heads around it, but sometimes it just needs to be what it is. Spiritually, how are you spiritually fed? Reach out to people in the spiritual community that can help you feel better. And physically, grief is exhausting for everyone. It's exhausting. There are some factors and variables that might happen, and you have to think about this too. Sometimes culture doesn't allow for grief, or does. There are some cultures that celebrate this transition of something or someone. And then there are some cultures that it's a loss. It's always a support system, and understanding the nature of the relationship between you and them, and how the person died can be a factor. I actually have had this conversation with someone that said, well, they're an addict, they did it to themselves. I about blew my top. I said, they're dead. Let's mourn our loss. I was stopped dead in my tracks when I heard that. And that was a family member that said it, because it was a family member that died. And it's just a shame that people think about it that way. Comments from other people can make a difference. Stigmas can make a difference. Religion, what religious background they have, who's responsible for their taking care of their passing. So if it's someone that you loved and they went to your church, which was Church A, and then their family was from Church B, and when they die, you're not married or anything, so they go over and celebrate. I mean, they can take away all your privileges because they're going to do it their way, because their religion dictates what they do, right? There might be other external variables in this too. So, are we stuck? No, we're not stuck. We're in process. I feel like we're starting to see some light. I'm empathic, but I actually feel like things are starting to lighten up. People are taking a collective breath and going, okay, we can move forward. We're not stuck here. Do we need to suck it up and bear it? Absolutely not. We need to walk through it and take care of it, right? Do we need to get it done? No. We need to keep in the process, be a work in process. just take care of your mind and body, because when we don't, we get stuck in it. And it's scary, and we feel like we're alone, and we're not. Okay? No one is ever alone. So reach out and get help. Refrain from any immediate purging, too. I had somebody do that. As soon as a family member died, within a week, everything of that family member was gone. And it was devastating to me, because it doesn't allow people time to connect and time to go through their process. But this is how this person did it, so we have to, I guess, give them their time in their way to grieve. It's just really hard for people when they do. Sometimes you can make like a little in-home thing. I put my dad's pictures all together so that I can see them. And that way it's a reminder that, there was this love. There was 25 years of this love, and I'm so grateful for that. Make a connection to the natural world. Get out. Go barefoot. Go hiking. Do something, because that actually does help us process. Okay? And we're allowing ourselves to feel. Rest. Embrace the mystery of what grief is. It's not a bad thing. It's a natural process that we go through. Don't put time on your limits. And if you don't want to wear black, don't. One of the funerals I went to was a young Hawaiian lady. And in Hawaii, they don't wear black. They wear very floral colors to funerals. So I was probably the only one in those floral colors, but she meant that much to me. I wore this beautiful floral top and some white pants and I had my chanclas on. Well, that's what my granddaughter calls them, but my slippers, they call them in Hawaii, right? I had my slippers on, and I actually presented at the funeral, so I was doing what I knew connected with her, because I love her. And, of course, get support, and if you're lost in the dark, and get some help. So the last question I have for you is, what if we allow the losses not to guide us, instead to enlighten us? To tell us more about ourselves. What could we learn about ourselves and others if we allowed them to enlighten us? And the last thought I have, in the hope of healing the grief we are all experiencing right now. When we lose someone we love, we must learn not to live without them, but to live with the love they left behind. Let's pray. Higher power, we are so grateful for you in our lives and for you keeping us together. Help enlighten us. Help us to mine the gold in all of the losses, see the gains and the transitions, and hold all the love, because that cannot be taken from us. We know this. We feel these all the love and all the connection from them in our hearts. We thank you for this time together.